Hello, we're glad you could join us on the morning program, the Dailies, where we look at some of the paper reviews, look at the stories that are making it to the front page of the paper, and then as well, we sit down and analyze the stories together. Please do remember you can be part of the show by dropping your comment, your views on Facebook, as they are very, very important and relevant to, the show being complete. I am Stella Elisha Dashop. I'll be doing this program together with Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Good morning, Sally.
All right, we will be running through the pages, starting with the Nation newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, Lagos gets 8 CP in 7 years. Moshood replace Ishola. You can find details on page 2. Investors scramble for Nigeria's assets. Economy peaks on liquidity. You can find details on page 7. CEOs confident in economy. DSS presence at Lagos Assembly raises dust. Ogun promises IPP in 8 weeks. You can find details of these stories on page 7 and 6. The big story on the paper, inflation drops to 24.48% in expected NBS January figures. The writer says enhanced digital methodologies in line with global standards adopted. Mayhem in Oshun over control of councils. Many killed and injured. Governor shot secretariat. You can start with the details on the front page. Nel fund to terminate loan for dropouts. You can find details on page 4. AU endorses Nigeria as AFCFTA digital trade champion. More details can be found on page 25, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
Moving on to the Daily Monitor newspaper. Lagos lawmaker Atiku demands investigation into DSS interference. More detail can be found in the paper. Whole rate focus on fiscal measures. CPPE urges MPC. Says further interest rate increase will negatively impact manufacturing and real sector. Ex-CIBN president and others list ways to guard against manufacturing collapse. More detail can be found in the paper. Custom CG to appear before National Assembly today breaks silence on officers' retirement controversy. We detail found in the paper. We have other smaller stories on the front page of the paper, so please do well to get the paper, read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
The first story on New Telegraph, investors emerging bullish on Nigerian assets and reforms. This is a report. Cardoso restates commitment to diaspora engagement. Man predicts gloomy year for manufacturing sector for the year 2025. Nigeria needs alternative funding to fix 360,000 kilometers of roads, coming from the minister. UBA Group champions peace in Africa with landmark 500,000 US dollar donation to AU. New Telegraph award will spur me to do more for Nigeria, Tompolo is saying. In Ukraine, 2 Russian officials to hold talks with US and Saudi Arabia today. The big story on New Telegraph, speakership crisis. DSS invades Lagos Assembly. The writer says as lawmakers pass a vote of confidence on Miranda, condemn action adjourned indefinitely. Invasion reprehensible, condemnable. A statement from Atiku. We're invited to prevent Obasa from resuming as speaker. DSS is saying we didn't invite secret police to seal complex, Ogundipe is saying. You can find details of the big story on page 2 and 5. Still on the paper, we have Ocean crisis. LG boss, 5 others killed. Executive director escapes assassination. As 15 APC chairman, councillor resume office. Government condoles victim of illegal takeover bid. We have Osun National Assembly caucus seek Tinubu's intervention. You can't return to office. PDP tells sacked Osun LG buses. And I think this crisis was forthcoming. Like the people involved saw it coming. It already smelled it was going to be chaos, and there was already a lot of tension around it. But I think the people in Osun just decided to be stubborn and go ahead. And to yesterday we saw it that they were going to resume warning. And today we are seeing that lives are being lost. It's almost like you walking into your death deliberately, despite all the tension and warning around it. It's a sad one, but it's not a surprising one because it was coming and it was perceived and seen. There were so many indicators that it was not going to go well. You can find details of this story on page 4 and 5. No electricity in over 20,000 Nigerian communities, says REA. We have UCH resident doctors threaten indefinite strike over power outage. Senate patterns South Korean fund for mini-grid solution. The Accountant General of the Federation court injunction threatens selection process. Industrial Court reserves February 26 for ruling. We've not zoned our 2027 presidency, Labour Party say. You can find details on page 5. We have a study that says birth control pills linked to heart risks. So if you want to have a healthy heart, I think you should stay away from birth control pills. You can go for other healthier options. You can find details on page 29, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. Oshun Mayhem, ex-council chair, 6 others shot dead as Adeleke Oyetola supporters were. And I wonder why this is happening, just to link to what you were saying. We had almost the same thing in Rivers State, if you clearly remember, between the local government chairman, where we saw that they wanted to come back in office even after their 6 years tenure were over. And it's the same thing we're seeing happening in Oshun again, where we're having the APC local government chairman trying to come back to office, where we know that there is a new person in power.
Yes.
And I just hope that we don't keep having this back and forth and misunderstanding between the predecessor and even the person who is presently on seat. I mean, you're done with your seat, so I think it would only be wise and actually for the peace and unity of the state that you talk to your own local government chairman that were on seat, where you were when you were on seat, and actually tell them, okay, your time is over. And then there's a need for re-election. If the people of that local government feel they still want this chairman to retain their seat, then it's a different thing altogether. Not the chairman imposing and forcing themselves. We saw that happening in Rivers, and I'm just hoping that this will not become a norm, or it become a normal thing for people to feel that you can still retain the seat even no matter what it is. So let's see how this whole thing turns out. But I hope that Oyetola will call his own supporters to actually to order. Still on the Punch newspaper, federal government plans 2.3 trillion naira electricity subsidy in 2025. Excuse me. Still on the Punch front page, we have state project 3 trillion naira tax after reform bill's passage. The big story, chaos crisis in Lagos. DSS lawmakers bicker over daylight assembly inversion. And we have Merinda refuses to resign, Obasa plots return. We have the GAC to meet Tinubu Sanwo-Olu security change. More detail of this story can be found on page 2. AU endorses Nigeria as the AFCFTA Digital Trade Champion. You can find more detail of that story in the paper. AGF bars police from parading suspect. And then we have controversial singer Portable declared wanted for assaulting Ogun officials. Ex-Skybank chair Ayini reject ex-mistress daughter, with data found on page 38. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, the first story, federal FCT begins e-ticketing for traffic offenders. 1,000 killed, 2,000 villages sacked by armed herdsmen in Sankerin in 2 years, says coalition. You can find details on page 2. The big story on the Daily Times, Oshun violence, hold APC responsible, PDP tells IGP. As sacked chairman, brandish court papers. No bandit can dare our village, Zamfara community boast. Ahead of 2027 LP, ZLP denies zoning presidency to Southeast OB2. PDP youth leader knocks Wabara for commending Governor OT. Details can be found on page 4. The last story here, CAS orders prompt investigation of Yanni Hill airstrike. And that's all news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, Independent Award has vindicated others before it, coming from the NDDC MD. Expert warn of rising antimicrobial resistance in Nigeria. Say if unchecked could lead to 100 million deaths annually by 2050. More detail can be found in the paper. 6 persons killed as SAC Oshun LG chairman resumed duty. Adeleke asks residents to stay away from local government secretariats. Osun lawmakers accuse minister of orchestrating takeover. You can find more detail of the story in the paper. Disregard allegation against NSA, EFCC, DSS, and lawmakers. It is coming from 259 civil societies. On 2027, Labour Party denied zoning of presidential ticket to the Southeast. So we're saying that already the APC is talking about retaining Tinubu, and then PDP we're still looking at where they are looking at, and then here we are also seeing Labour Party saying they are yet to zone it. So all fingers are crossed regarding 2027 election. Court restrained CBN from withholding Kano local government allocations. Cardoso in Saudi Arabia urges stronger economic ties with Middle East. UBA Group donates $500,000 to AUP's fund with detail found on page 7. Another story on the paper here is saying Lagos lawmakers condemn DSS invasion of assembly, wants Tinubu to call secret police to order, pass vote of confidence in the new speaker Merinda, and then we have Atiku condemns invasion of Lagos assembly. All of the story can be found in the paper. And then we have the Nigerian Air Force airstrike hit bandit, twat attack on police in Katsina. More detail found on page 6 in that is all on Daily Independent newspaper.
On this day newspaper, we have the big story and the only story on the paper. It says after rebasing, NBS put headline inflation at 24.48% in January from 34.80% in December. The writer says food index drops to 26.08% from 39.84%. Core inflation now 22.59% from 29.28%. Now new CPI reflects current inflationary pressure, consumption pattern, say statistical agencies. Clarifies decline in rebased inflation does not mean general price level is declining, because it doesn't matter. Things are still high in the market, and these numbers are really not showing that there's any decline in the market. You can start with the details on the front page, and then continue on page 24, and then we have a happy birthday message to Alex Oti. That's all the news on this day newspaper.
On Metric newspaper, Cardoso canvasses stronger economic ties with Middle East to partner Nigerian diaspora to boost remittance, strengthen economy, with detail found on the front page and on page 3. As well, we have for the EPL, why Arsenal may still catch up with Liverpool. This is coming from Nivila. You can find detail of that story on page 22. Osun local government mayhem, death toll hits 8. And we have the IGP condemns violent, vow to deal with perpetrators. PDP reject APC call for state of emergency, with detail on page 3. As well, the big story, Lagos State House of Assembly Speaker crisis, outrage trace DSS invasion of Lagos Assembly. How letter from the Lagos State House of Assembly to the DSS triggered the crisis. It's an attack on sanity of democracy, says Atiku. Tinubu should caution Obasa, use of force in APC is shameful. This is coming from GRV. And then we have 36 of the 40 lawmakers reaffirm support for Miranda, panel adjourned indefinitely. So the panel has been adjourned. Do well to read more detail of what's happening at the Lagos State House of Assembly on page 2. Court grant Dazani request to amend suit against forfeiture order. 85 Nigerian deportees arrive in Lagos from US amid immigration crackdown. So hopefully we'll be having more people coming to the country, not just from Libya this time around, but even from the US. Anambra government sealed church over alleged ritual practices. Anambra government sealed church over alleged ritual practices, with detail found on page 9. We have the picture story welcoming the president back into the country after the African Union summit that he had over there in Ethiopia, and that's all on the Metric newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, Lagos Assembly crisis worsens, reveals deeper cracks in state's power dynamics, and a cartoon supporting it where we can see that the stool where Miranda is sitting on is a shaky one. You can find details on page 6. Labour Party denies zoning 2027 presidential ticket, refutes Igbo presidency claims. On power outage, UCH resident doctors embark on indefinite strike. Nigerians show approval of Tinubu's performance via defection to APC. That's political. It doesn't show the performance of a president. This is just a political move by politicians playing their cards and all of that. You can find details of this statement on page 3. Man decries rising cost of alternative energy over regulation policy inconsistencies. Labor lawmakers will be react as NAFDAC seals 3,000 Lagos shops. The last story on the paper, over 20,000 communities without electricity nationwide, says REA. That's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
I wonder why these communities are without electricity. So is it that they have not actually gotten all that is needed? The transformers are not available. What really is the problem? And then I clearly remember where the Minister of Power assured us that power will be restored to the University Teaching Hospital in Ibadan over there. And then here we're seeing that they're actually threatening to go on strike because power is yet to be restored. We saw students as well saying they will continue to protest until light is being restored to the hall and over even in their hostels. So I wonder what the problem is. We clearly remember where the Ibadan electricity assured us that they have actually restored light back over there. So we hope that something will be done. Let's not frustrate the effort of our doctors that are trying their best. A number of them are leaving the country, so let's give them all the support that they need to work well. Looking at the Blueprint newspaper, Lagos Assembly crisis escalates, 36 members back Miranda, data found on page 9. Cardoso urges stronger economic ties with the Middle East. You can find that business story on page 20. As well, we have, as an aftermath of appeal court judgment, violence erupts in Osun, ex-council chair, 4 others killed. PDP APC lay claim to the local government. Reps Kakas seek Tinubu's intervention regarding that matter. And then as well, another writer here is singing, APC alleges SSG-led attack at Adeleke PDP false claim. And the police here is saying, we will deal with the culprits. So you can find more detail of this story on page 8. NNPCL acquires 15% equity stake in Star CNG station, company petrol of high quality. You can find more detail on page 8. We will employ technology to realize 2025 revenue target coming from the federal government, with the writer here saying 14 trillion naira debt servicing too. So let's see how the government will be able to realize all of this revenue target that they have for the year. Net4 opens portal for 2024-2025 student loan. So if you need that, please, already the portal is open. Take advantage of that. UBA Group champions peace in Africa with landmark of $500,000. As well, we also have suspected headers invade Benue community again. This really is sad one. We have the picture story where we can see the Kaduna State Governor Uba Sani addressing a crowd of supporters at the mega rally of the All Progressive Congress at the Murtala Square, where political stewards from opposition parties recently defected to the ruling party. More detail can be found in the paper, and that is all on Blueprint newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, the big story, chaos in Lagos Assembly. The writer says DSS invasion of assembly premises, entering of chambers spark outrage. Lawmakers, assembly workers, indigenous storm assemblies scuffle with security personnel. Leaked memo shows DSS was invited over need for enhanced security measures. Miranda gains support, sheds tears amid confidence vote by 36 lawmakers. On power outage, UCH resident doctors threaten indefinite strike. AU endorses Nigeria as digital trade champion. UBA Group champions peace in Africa with landmark $500,000 donation to AU Peace Fund. Details can be found on page 7. Bandits kill 19 in Benue, renewed attacks. Court restrains CBN others from withholding Kano local government allocation. Still on the paper, bloodshed in Osun, 6 feared killed as PDP APC supporters clash over control of LG Secretariat. Commissioned in 2002, 23, but non-functional. Pathetic story of 100-bed mother-child hospital in Ibadan. UCH speaks, and it's sad to see the government sinking in so much funds to make certain things available, and then it ends up being abandoned. I hope that the current government of Ibadan do something about it alongside. If it's a federal government property, the federal government should do something about it. If it's state-owned, the state should do something about it. Senate leader leads Ekiti Central Senatorial District to endorse Oyebanji for second term. Details can be found on page 2. We have a picture story. Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi leading candlelight procession with others in honor of the late Adebanjo in Lagos. This happened yesterday, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On Vanguard newspaper, economic diversification, Edu leads insecurity, poor infrastructure as key challenges. You can read more detail of that on page 8. I won't stop praising Oti, Wubara tells PDP. Lagos Assembly crisis, why our men were in the premises, coming from DSS. 19 killed in the fresh herdsmen attacks in Benue communities. The big story, Osun local government crisis. 8 killed, scores injured as PDP-APC clash. PDP talks invaded the council secretariat. This is coming from Osun APC. Adeleke orders security agents to take over the local government secretariat. The matter is under investigation. This is coming from the police. National Assembly caucus tax Tinubu and also the NSA on order in Osun. Sack local government bosses, councillors can't return to office. This is coming from the PDP. Ask the IGP to hold APC liable for any breach of peace. So more detail found on page 10. Kanu raised alarm, alleges federal government tricks to perpetually detain him. As well, we have Eagles must beat Rwanda to remain in contention. This is regarding the FIFA 2026 qualifiers. You can read more detail of that. We have two pictures story. One is Tinubu and his wife returning from Ethiopia. The second one is Cardoso and Edu at the conference for emerging market economies. And that's all on Vanguard newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, the first story, Leadership Award Valuable Significant. Governor Peter Mba, Governor of the Year 2024. Trending, U.S. set to return Nigerian deportees to Lagos. Nigeria's personal loan portfolio hits 3.32 trillion naira. We have a $220 million fine. No date for tribunal ruling on Meta's appeal yet. Concerns as cyber threat attacks soar in banking and education sectors. The big story, crisis rocks Lagos Assembly, Osun LGAs. The writer says Speaker Miranda gets confidence vote as Obasa bid to return fails. Lawmakers seek DSS protection. Ex-LG boss, 4 others killed in Osun. You can find details of these stories on page 4. UBA Group donates $500,000 to AU Peace Fund. Invictus Games, we wanted visas for 3 officers and 21 athletes. This is from the defense headquarters. Stakeholders back widowhood leave bill. You can find details on page 27. This is an interesting bill. Air Force orders probe of Katsina strikes. Details can be found on page 8. And then we have a Leadership Gold Standard Awards picture series where we can see Balarabe Abbas Lawal, Environmental Impact Person of the Year 2024, with a statement, "This award is very important to me." And that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On First News, Atiku slammed DSS and police over shocking invasion of Lagos Assembly. Rising trend of no... Alright, another story here. We have horror in Lokoja. 6 student driver die as trailer crushes bus. Horror in Lokoja. 6 student driver die as trailer crushes the bus. This is really a very, very sad story. Asset for feature court grant Zeni request to amend suit against EFCC. Pope Francis to remain hospitalized as doctors treat complex respiratory infection. It's really a sad one. We wish him quick recovery. Here we are having the story that I've been making on most of our paper, Adeleke versus Oyetola, that is regarding the Osun local government crisis. As well, we have Obi condemns closure of Onitsha market, calls for the reopening. Downside of the paper, Labour Party denies zoning the 2027 presidential ticket to Southeast. We have the picture story showing us a resilient speaker at the Lagos Assembly that's talking about Marinda, and that's all on the first newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, the first story, Abiodun to commission first phase of 100 megawatt power plant in Ogun. 5 persons killed over LG control battle between APC and PDP. This happened in Osun. AU endorses Nigeria as Africa's CFTA digital trade champion. As Energy convenes industry leaders to drive Nigeria's oil production growth. Elect 340,000 US dollar fraud court orders Mercy Chinwo's ex-manager to appear in court. The big story, which has been on most of our papers, speakership battle. Showdown in Lagos Assembly as DSS clashes with lawmakers, seals speaker and deputy offices. The writer says 36 lawmakers pass vote of confidence in speaker as assembly adjourns plenary indefinitely. DSS claims invitation by acting clerk denies presidency's interference. Stop interfering in state matters. Focus on bringing Nigeria out of mess. Atiku tells Tinubu, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On Business Day newspaper, Naira marks Nigerian struggling non-oil export. Naira marks Nigerian struggling non-oil export, with detail found on page 31. Regulatory silence over substandard petrol questions. You can find that on page 30. UBA Group donates $500,000 to AUP's fund. You can find that story on page 7. As well, we have how Nigeria can boost slowing GDP per capita coming from Tiriba. You can find that story on page 30. And that is all on Business Day newspaper.
On Punch Sport Extra, the big story, miles ahead. Osimhen Turkey's most valuable transfer ever, 70 million euros above second. United Napoli close to agreement for Nigerian striker. You can find details on page 7 and the table from 1 to 10, where Fred is at 10 from Man United, which was at 20 million, and then Osimhen is number 1 with 17 million, way above the second person, which is Zaniolo. Still on the paper, Balogun Bruce 2023 AFCON miss awaits Eagles call-up. Nigerians in crucial UCL playoff test. Atlanta hope for Lukman injury boost versus Broke. Arena 6 title defense, World Cup spot at African Cup. You can find details on page 2. Everything's going wrong, admits Amorim. City sent 100-point deduction warning in FFP case. Arsenal to beat Barca with 83 million pounds, Cisco bid. And we have Maresca not in danger of sacking. Rangers showed character in Remo defeat, a statement from Ogumo Dede. You can find details on page 6. African champion Opoyori sets sights on more titles. And that's all in news on Punch Sports Extra.
And that is how far we can go on the program this morning. So thank you to our supporters, our viewers, and to the entire production team. We look forward again to doing this together tomorrow. Please do have a lovely day ahead.